Let's do it.
Very good. I'm going to call the July 6th meeting of the City of Elkhart Plan Commission to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Beecher, Jones,
Present.
Lawson,
Here.
Osborne,
Here.
Newbill,
Here.
Murray,
Here.
Mishler,
Present.
Schaefer.
Here. We do have a quorum. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second. I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Mishler, seconded by Mr. Newbill. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I have the printouts of the legal notices here. Do I have a motion to approve the proofs of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lawson, seconded by Mr. Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. New business. First item on the agenda is 26-X-02. Petitioner is Donnie Greathouse, New Life in Christ Ministries. Can we have the staff report, please?
The site location is 1842 East Bristol Street. The request per section 11.3A special exception use in the B1 Neighborhood Business District to allow for the establishment of a new church at 1842 East Bristol Street. Okay. Staff analysis. The request is per 11.3 special exception use. Church to allow for the establishment of a new church at 1842 East Bristol Street. The petitioner has purchased a commercial building with the intent of remodeling the building to use as a church. This building was previously used as a bank, and the applicant is proposing some interior remodeling to open up the floor plan to accommodate the new use as a place of worship. The floor plan provided shows several existing offices that will be remodeled to create a new larger gathering / congregational space. Some of the current office space will remain. At this time, no proposals were made for changes to the exterior of the building. The site has 20 parking spaces based on the current parking requirements. The current parking configuration will accommodate about 100 people. Recommendation. Staff recommends approval based on the request of the following findings of fact. Number one, the special exception is so defined, located, and proposed to operate that the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. Number two, the special exception will not reduce the value of other properties in its immediate vicinity because there will be no exterior changes to the existing building. Number three, the special exception shall conform to the regulations of the zoning district in which it is to be located because it will not generate adverse effects on adjoining properties in the forms of noise, smoke, or odor. Conditions. If the board chooses to approve the requested special exception, staff recommends the following condition be placed upon the approval. Number one, the petitioner shall submit project for a modified staff technical review to ensure all developmental requirements are met.
Any questions for the staff? Mr. Mishler?
Thank you. Question I had there was kind of related to parking. I know you said there's 20 spaces and that's enough for 100 people. I know there are several businesses around there. I know some of them aren't currently occupied, but my major concern is if those businesses' storefronts become occupied and become busy, what those 20 spaces be adequate for services at a church, or would it impact other businesses by having their lots, filled up?
Eric Trotter. The current configuration does not take into account a restriping of the former drive-through areas. So there is the potential for more parking on that side. And part of our thought process for the current number of people in the facility is based on our current parking requirements. It's four seats per one car in the common area of the place of worship. So, and then to also address your comment with regard to the other businesses, typically a place of worship, their largest numbers of people in attendance are on Sunday mornings or on an evening during the week. That's typically, for the most part, off common hours of other businesses that would be surrounding the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the staff?
Real quick, before I forget.
Ms. Mishra?
Sorry. It was originally designed as a bank, and if there was potentially up to 100 people there, which there's parking for, is that still within what the fire code permits for a building that size?
When they obtain their building permits, they'll go through that with the building department and when they go through their plan review.
Thank you.
Sure.
Seeing none, I will ask the petitioner to come forward. Please just state your name and address and give us a brief summary of your request.
I'm Donnie Greathouse. I'm the pastor, president of New Life in Christ Ministries. My home address is 16746 Donnell Lake Street, Vandalia, Michigan, 49095. We are just asking to be able to use the facility for a place of worship. I know there was a couple things said. The facility before we bought it had already been completely renovated. All the the desks and things were all removed out of the facility. Just to kind of give you maybe of an understanding of where it's at kind of right now. There's about a 30 by 50, which is about 1,500 square foot of just open space right in the middle of the facility. Then there's an office, little small office room on each side. And so it's very open. And what we're really looking for, I mean, if it's up to 100, that's fine. What we are really looking to use the space is probably for 50 to 60 people is really all we would ever probably use the space for. If we were to get to those numbers, we also have another place that we possibly would look at or move to a new location or something like that, or just keep it a small Bible study or something along the lines of that. And so that's kind of where we are. We're a not-for-profit. I've pastored for about 19 years now. And so we also own daycares and daycare centers in the community. We have done this many years as well here in the Elkhart city area. So that's just a little bit of who we are, and that's what we want to do with the facility. There is 20 stalls. Like he said, there's some extra space with the covered drive-through area. We currently don't use that, but if we needed to, we could use that as well. I don't know if there's anything else or if there's questions.
Any questions for Mr. Greathouse? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Very much. Thank you for your time.
Welcome to the neighborhood. Welcome to the neighborhood.
We will open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the room or online who would like to make public comment on this matter? Oh, no. Yeah.
I apologize. For clarification, this is a special exception. Yep. So this is not the public hearing. The public hearing is at the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yep. Seeing no public comment, we will bring it back to the Plan Commission, and I will look for a motion to make a recommendation to the BZA.
I will make a motion that we send this to the BZA with a due pass recommendation.
A second.
I have a motion by Mr. Mishler, seconded by Mr. Newbill. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Osborne,
Yes.
Newbill,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mishler,
Aye.
Schaefer.
Yes. Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is 26-PUDA 2022-04. Petitioner is David Myers and Elizabeth Myers.
The site location is vacant land at Woodside Estates. The request is per section 2010B1 of the City of Elkhart zoning ordinance, a major amendment to the Woodland Estates Planned Unit Development District. Ordinances PC 9232 and PC 9234, approved by the Board of County Commissioners for Elkhart County. The proposed amendment would remove 6.66 acres of land from the Woodside Estates Planned Unit Development to also allow a 50-foot right-of-way for the cul-de-sac to match the existing development, to allow lot frontages that are less than 75 feet for the Woodland Estates Drive as depicted on the preliminary plat, to allow for no public sidewalks in this part of the development, and to allow Lot 68 to have no frontage. Analysis. Per section 2010B1 of the City of Elkhart zoning ordinance, a major amendment to the Woodside Estates Planned Unit Development District. Ordinances PC 9232 and PC 9234, approved by the Elkhart County Board of County Commissioners for Elkhart County. The proposed amendment would remove 6.66 acres of land from the Woodside Estates Planned Unit Development to also allow a 50-foot right-of-way for the cul-de-sac to match the existing development, to allow lot frontages that are less than 75 feet for the Woodland Estates Drive as depicted on the preliminary plat, to allow for no public sidewalks in this part of the development, and to allow Lot 68 to have no frontage. The Woodside Estates Planned Unit Development was approved by the Elkhart County Board of Commissioners in 1992. The development was to be built in 4 phases. The development was annexed into the City of Elkhart in 1993. Currently, Phase 1 and Phase 2 have been built out. The original plan called for 2 additional loop roads built to connect Woodland Estates Drive as a part of Phase 3 and Phase 4. A graphic is provided below that depicts the original phasing for the subdivision. The updated plan will reduce the number of lots from the original plan of 74 to 55 and alter the street layout for the proposed Phase 3 of the development. The revised plan will establish a new cul-de-sac on the north side of the development. The revised plan will also establish 3 lots with direct access to Hinkey Street. With the modified plan for Phase 3, there will be 13 new lots established. The developer is proposing to extend the northern leg of Woodland Estates Drive to the east to a new cul-de-sac and establish 9 new single-family lots depicted on the preliminary plat of 65 through 67 and 69 through 77. One lot, Lot 68, is proposed to have no street frontage and is to be deeded to the parcel to the south, Lot 59, Phase 2. This action will match the depth of the other lots along the south leg of Woodland Estates Drive. Finally, 3 lots, the proposed lots 70, 72, and 73 are proposed to have direct access to Hinkey Street and are larger to allow for well and septic. The petitioner is also proposing to amend the PUD to remove 6.66 acres and request to rezone that land to R1, one-family dwelling district, and that request will follow after the amendment has been heard by the Common Council. With access off Hinkey and proposed to be larger lots, these parcels do not feel as much as part of the these parcels do not feel as much a part of the more homogeneous original phases of the development. These 3 lots are proposed to not be part of the homeowners association. The request for dimensional lot deviations for the cul-de-sac and relief from the street width requirement are requested to maintain consistency within the overall development. From staff's perspective, neither of these requests are unreasonable and maintain the consistency of the development. The proposed setback for each of the lots is consistent with the other lots in the cul-de-sacs throughout the neighborhood. The street width relief is also consistent with the existing development and within design standards for a low-volume residential neighborhood. The request for relief from the requirement to install public sidewalk within the right-of-way within Phase 3 is to maintain the consistency of the overall subdivision, as there are no other public sidewalks within the development. In 2007 and 2015, petitions were filed with the Board of Zoning Appeals seeking relief from having to install the public sidewalks for the remaining vacant lots. Those requests covered the last 11 undeveloped lots in the neighborhood at that time. The board requests were made as the first homes developed did not have public sidewalks, and there was a desire to maintain that throughout the development. Recommendation, per section 2010B1, the City of Elkhart zoning ordinance, staff recommends approval of a major amendment to the Woodland Estates Planned Unit Development District ordinances PC 9232 and PC 9234, approved by the Board of County Commissioners for Elkhart County. The proposed amendment would remove 6.66 acres of land from the Woodland Estates Planned Unit Development to also allow for 50-foot right-of-way for the cul-de-sac to match the existing development, to allow lot frontages that are less than 75 feet for the Woodland Estates Drive as depicted on the preliminary plat, and to also allow for no public sidewalks in this part of the development, and to allow for lot 68 to have no frontage. The comprehensive plan calls for this area to be developed with low-density residential uses. The proposed amendment to the PUD maintains the low-density residential uses and is in keeping with the long-range land use plan. Number 2, the proposed amendment to the Woodland Estates Planned Unit Development should not impact negatively the other residential uses within the PUD or have a substantially negative effect on the surrounding uses, as the uses within the PUD will remain low-density residential. And number 3, the proposed amendment to the Woodland Estates Planned Unit Development will minimize adverse environmental impacts to the development by maintaining acres of the wooded area and would improve the design quality and character of the development. There were 39 letters mailed, 3 returned in favor with no comment, and 3 returned not in favor with no comment.
Questions for the staff? Mr. Mishler?
Thank you. Remind me, Eric, was this the second or the third phase for this development?
What is being heard today is the third.
The third.
Would be the third phase.
Okay. The other 2 phases have no public sidewalks at all?
Correct.
Okay. I just know that historically, when we have had new developments, be it on 17, even though it was on 17, we still requested that public sidewalks be in place because it is a public safety issue. And for a housing development, for me, I think of kids running around. I think of people riding their bikes and things like that, where sidewalks are beneficial. And the only reason they don't want sidewalks is because they don't want half of the development to have sidewalks and the other half to seemingly not have sidewalks. So it's just an aesthetics request on their part?
Well, I think largely that, and I think from staff's perspective, that this neighborhood is self-contained. It doesn't connect to any other neighborhood. And there aren't, at this time, we don't have the public infrastructure on the main public right-of-way on Oslo or on Henke at this time. And this request would be just for the interior of the self-contained development. I mean, I do see your perspective, and I think if this were largely in most other neighborhoods within the greater Elkhart area that do connect to other neighborhoods and do have or would be existing on the grid, we would not have supported that request. But it is a self-contained development that was originally approved in the county. There are only 9 lots left in the main part of the neighborhood. And with the idea that it would probably not in my lifetime be connected with any other infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, how is it lot 68 has no frontage?
It is a parcel of property that they've established as a lot that will be deeded to the property that is directly south of it. So it is a part of the overall subdivision. It was platted, and then it will be deeded to that lot.
To the lot adjoined in lot 59?
South, lot 59 of phase 2.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff?
I have one. what are the total number of lots that have been developed, I guess we would say? Outside of phase 3, there are 2.
Well, hold on one second. I got to do some quick math, and that's not.
I mean, I'm just trying to think of the density of traffic based on not having sidewalks.
There are, give me just one second. With this phase 3, there would be 55 lots. So it would be 55 of the main development, 55 minus 9, or 55 minus 13 if you count the 3 lots that would connect to Hankey Street.
So right now there are 42 lots.
Correct.
And we're adding 9 kind of within the subdivision, 1 that's more like an outlot, and then 3 larger parcels.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Thank you for that quick math.
Purdue education, thank you very much.
He does math a lot.
Any other questions for the staff? Mr. Jones, did you have a question?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I did.
With that, if the petitioner is here, if you could please come up, state your name and address.
Good afternoon, Angela Smith, the Joan Petrie Rapinski office is located at 325 South Lafayette and South Bend. Here representing the petitioner. Thank you, Jeff, for your quick math. We were counting the lots on our plan, so we got there about the same time you did. Thank you for hearing us this afternoon. The staff report was really thorough, and Mr. Trotter covered the majority of anything pertaining to the site. Essentially, this portion of the development has been owned under the current ownership for over 20 years. The current market conditions kind of have it set so about 9 lots left to build on, and then the other 3 would be able to be serviced by well and septic due to the size and location. They're just looking to finish off this development, and the requested variations are to allow for it to kind of be consistent. I understand your concerns. The 9 lots are on this cul-de-sac by themselves. They're even kind of secluded from the rest of the development and really don't connect to anything. And we're just looking to be consistent on lot development in terms of size and the look of the streets, sidewalks, and lot widths throughout the development, so it looks cohesive is the main thing here. The 3 remaining lots would be developed separately with access to Hankey, as mentioned. I'd be happy to answer any question. Mr. Myers is here today as well to answer any questions you may have.
Question, so it's been 20 years since Charlie Clark developed this when it was Holiday Corporation. It's been that long? Time flies.
Yeah.
So the 3 that have opted out of the homeowners associations, that means I think all the homes are the same color? Will those be able to be different colors?
Yeah, so this would be separate from all the development, so they would be allowed to develop as if they weren't part of those restrictions, and really you won't see them because they'll be behind the ones that end at the end of the cul-de-sac, so it'll feel completely separate.
Yeah, and the sidewalks don't concern me. I mean, Greenleaf Manor and places like that haven't had cul-de-sacs. None of those have sidewalks, so they've been around a long time, that's fine. That's it, thanks.
Any other questions for the petitioner, for Ms. Smith? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am. We will open up the public hearing on this. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this matter? Please state your name and address and sign in if you haven't already. Oh, I think she stole the sign-in sheet. If you want to state your name and address, then you can sign in. We'll get it worked out.
Ken Yoder, 2025 Woodland Estates, 21-year residence in that neighborhood. The original developer, Holiday Properties, was granted this use permit back in 1992, I think they said. Originally, they were granted the use permits to develop the Maple Lane Apartments in a wooded area. Across Oslo Street was the modular housing place and Park Place. And back on the east side of Oslo Road was the villas built in a wooded area, known as Woodland Estates. I don't have the original brochures that they used in selling lots, but I have some of the bullet points. And the very first bullet point says, one of the last areas within the city of Elkhart where you can purchase a high-quality wooded lot in a new development on which you build your home. Item number 11, adjacent wooded areas provide a place to walk. And those trails are still there. They're being used. In fact, Maple Lane kids go over there and use those trails repeatedly. It gets them out of the apartments, gives them something to do. Going on, obviously, the original concept of housing is a wooded environment. The current developer has not really followed this concept, and I'll speak more to that later. We need to keep in mind that our development is named Woodland Estates. Woodland, not Cornfield Estates. The developer, when completing the most recent 7 lots, did not follow what they said where they built them according to the standards of our development. Essentially, they completely removed every piece of vegetation that's known in the city of Elkhart, and it looked more like a cornfield. It was total deforestation, clear cutting to the road, subsoil, removing all the trees, all the roots and everything else. So you could have grown corn on those 9 lots. No longer wooded lots. Going further, last Friday, the South Bend Tribune issued on the front page an article about tree cover in the Michiana area. I don't know if you all saw it or not. It was towards the bottom of the first page. The South Bend Sustainability Office Urban Tree Canopy initiative to grow South Bend's urban tree canopy up to 40% by 2050. Currently, the city of South Bend is at about 20 to 22%. And so to get to 40%, they'd have to add 100,000 trees by 2050. It's 1 per person. Now, I know Goshen is active in their maple tree concept. They want to maintain their maple trees. Elkhart City doesn't talk too much about it, but I talked with the city forester about 3 months ago when they were passing out trees as they do every year, you know, to try and improve the environment with more trees. And he basically told me that he, as a city employee, can only work on public land in the public right-of-way, the 15 feet from the street into the property. So he can't go on private property. So South Bend is pursuing this actively, which is interesting because with the recent tree debris and the tree storm damage we had, you know, some people are scared about trees now. But basically they say due to the large industrial development, disinvestment, and a bad reputation, trees are lacking in many neighborhoods across the city. He explained that trees can be messy, damaging to property, and costly to maintain, which has led to them having a bad reputation. But she also said they have a lot of benefits, such as health benefits, increased property value, biodiversity, improved air quality, cooling urban heat effect. So there's a lot of emphasis on tree canopies throughout the Midwest, and I think we need to buy into that concept and continue what the original developer had intended with using wooded areas. It's amazing to me that Maple Lane Apartments can be built within a wooded environment. Highland Apartments over by Walmart is in a wooded environment. North Point Apartments on County Road 4 is in a wooded environment. If the apartments can do it, then the residential area can do it. So basically, I'm recommending that they maintain along the property lines and along the public right-of-way, good solid trees that will be there for a long time. It takes 50 years to grow a tree, but it could take 50 minutes to cut it down. So we need to maintain the trees that we have. In order to help the developer in deciding what trees are good, he could call on the city forester to have him provide some advice, which may be useful to them. Basically, I guess that's my emphasis here. And I would recommend that you encourage the developer to include trees along the property lines and along the public right-of-way to maintain the Woodland Estates property, because the 7 properties that were completed over the last couple of years were just totally devastated. I mean, it was like a moonscape, so you can at least retain a few trees.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the room who would like to speak on this matter? Mr. Myers will handle that later. Anyone online who would like to speak on this matter? If you do want to speak, you do need to have a camera. And yeah, raise your hand in the Teams meeting. Is this still WebEx? Do I switch to Teams? I don't know. We should probably talk about this another time. Okay. Seeing none, I will ask the petitioner, do you have any quick responses you'd like to make to the public comment? You're going to team up on us. Just Mr. Myers, state your name and address for the record.
Andy Myers, 2809 Ferndale Road, Elkhart, Indiana. So I built, I believe, 8 of the 11 lots that were available after my parents and 2 other people purchased from Holiday Corporation. So I tried to maintain as many trees as reasonable. So one of the houses in the recent storm had 11 trees fall on their house, and another one had 1. And so I totally understand and do want to maintain trees as much as possible. My grandfather had a tree nursery growing up that I lived right next door to. So I very much appreciate trees, but I also think it's important for safety to try and you need to have a buffer around a home, in my opinion. My goal would be to maintain as many of the large trees as reasonably possible. And the goal would be to have the 9 lots be where in 5 years you couldn't really tell they weren't part of the original development, which is my goal with no sidewalks. I think if we were starting new, I would want to have sidewalks in. I'm just going, hey, I hope in a couple years you don't notice that it was totally separate, was my hope. And then part of the goal and why we redesigned it from what was the original plan, where it kind of has a U shape going. I believe when Holiday developed it originally, they took a bunch of dirt and created a wetland area that's there now, which we had to go through the Army Corps and the state. And my goal is to turn that into a pond and try to have it as a pleasant thing versus kind of right now it's not the most nice spot, which is why we're not having the road kind of circle around and do that. The part that was supposed to be for park is actually a little bit further to the south between Maple Lane and the Woodland Estate development, which isn't necessarily part of what we're working on developing now. So.
And that was my one question, Mr. Myers. So yeah, if for the Planning Commission members, if you look in your staff report, the multicolored map, the white area is platted as parkland, and that's not part of this application. That's still owned by another party. Mm-hmm. And then my other question was going to be, I assume, with the 3 larger lots, obviously there's going to be a lot of tree preservation on those because of how large they are.
Yeah, that's what I honestly, when I decided to try to develop this and purchase it so I'm in the process of purchasing, if we get it approved from my parents, I was showing the property to somebody else, and I walked back and I was like, oh, if I make a pond here and put a single house on the north-south side of that pond, we can have a really nice setting in the middle of the woods, which the goal would be to maintain as much, again, as reasonably possible. I think you need to have a buffer around a home to try to keep it safe, but in general, that would be the goal.
Very good.
That was going to be my note, is that if this had developed the way it was supposed to, it would have required the removal of far more vegetation and trees than it will in this particular scenario, because that remaining lot is so large. And I'm very familiar with the South Bend Urban Canopy Program, and the majority of those are in the public right-of-way and on publicly owned land. A very important thing that I fully support, and like as mentioned, we'll try to preserve as much as we can here.
Yeah, and I will note for the record, we have a arbor grant that's currently administered by the Environmental Center, which is doing plantings both on public and private property. So very good. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we ask for your favorable approval.
Thank you. With that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the Plan Commission. We are making a recommendation on the zoning component of this to go to the plan or to go to the Common Council.
I will make a motion that this goes to the Common Council with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Mishler and seconded by Mr. Jones. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Murray,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Newbill,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Mishler,
Aye.
Schaefer.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is 26-SUB-04. Petitioner is David Myers and Elizabeth Myers. Mr. Trotter, before you start, I don't know if this is a question for you or for our attorney. As we consider this preliminary plat, should our consideration be conditioned on the final approval of the PUD by the council? For the record, I'm seeing nodding heads. Okay, so we are considering this, but our consideration, our approval, if should we grant approval, would be on the condition that the Common Council approves the PUD that we just heard. Okay, very good. Thank you.
The petitioner is David Myers and Elizabeth Myers. The site location is the east side of undeveloped Woodland Estates, parcel number 0227301015. The request is per Article 4 of the subdivision ordinance, approval of a preliminary plat for a 13-lot plus or minus 10.44 acre major subdivision to be known as Woodland Estates Phase 3, a part of the southwest quarter of Section 27, Township 38 North, Range 5 East, Oslo Township, Elkhart County, Indiana. Analysis. Again, per Article 4 of the subdivision ordinance, approval of a preliminary plat for a 13-lot plus or minus 10.44 acre major subdivision to be known as Woodland Estates Phase 3, a part of the southwest quarter of Section 27, Township 38 North, Range 5 East, Oslo Township, Elkhart County, Indiana. The preliminary plat, known as Woodland Estates Phase 3, depicts the north section of Woodland Estates Drive extended to a cul-de-sac with 9 newly established lots for single-family dwellings. There are 4 additional lots proposed, 3 with access to from Hinkey Street and 1 without street frontage that is to be deeded to the adjacent property owner. The proposed retention for the newly extended street will be directly east of the cul-de-sac as depicted on the plat, across parts of future lots 70, 72, and 73 by way of a drainage easement along the north side of future lot 71. There are also a number of utility easements proposed for the purpose of extending water and sewer to all lots with the exception of lots 70, 72, and 73, which will utilize well and septic. Lots without water or sewer must meet a minimum lot width of 80 feet and be a minimum of 10,000 square feet in area. All lots meet the requirements. A non-access easement is also proposed along the west side of lot 77 to limit future curb cut placement for the future home on the south side of the parcel away from the intersection. The project meets the requirements of the zoning and subdivision ordinances, including lot size, layout, and street width, as it has been submitted to the city's technical review process and have had review of the project. There are some minor outstanding issues, however, staff does not anticipate any insurmountable issues with approval. Therefore, per Indiana Code 3674-702, a plan commission must consider when determining whether to grant primary preliminary approval of a plat. The plan commission shall determine if the plat or subdivision qualifies for primary preliminary approval under the standards prescribed by the subdivision control ordinance. Under the 700 series of the Indiana Code statutes, the review of primary preliminary plats are ministerial, and if the proposed preliminary plat has adhered to all of the requirements prescribed by the subdivision control ordinance, the Plan Commission must grant approval. Thereby, the City of Elkhart planning staff has reviewed the project petition and recommends approval of the preliminary plat for a 13-lot plus or minus 10.44 acre major subdivision to be known as Woodland Estates Phase 3, a part of the southwest quarter of Section 27, Township 38 North, Range 5 East, Oslo Township, Elkhart County, Indiana. The lots meet the minimum lot requirements for the R1 one-family dwelling districts. The lots proposed for the single-family development meet all the bulk standards of the R1 zoning district, one-family dwelling district, specifically minimum lot size and property development setbacks. Number 2, the proposed subdivision meets the stormwater requirements by establishing a drainage easement area across parts of lots 70, 72, and 73. And number 3, in review of the proposed preliminary plat for the major subdivision, staff finds the petitioner has demonstrated compliance with all enacted regulations of both the City of Elkhart zoning and subdivision control ordinance. Conditions: approval is preliminary only. The applicant must submit the required application materials for final plat approval to the plat committee as per Article 5 of the subdivision ordinance prior to the issuance of any permits for construction or sale of property. Number 2, subsequent approvals may be required from the appropriate city departments. Those approvals may include plans for water supply, stormwater retention, sewage disposal, grading, roadway construction, and other infrastructure prior to final plat approval. Number 3, approval is tentative and shall be valid for a maximum period of 12 months. The City Plan Commission may grant an extension upon written request. If the final plat has not been recorded within the time limit, the primary approval is null and void, and the preliminary subdivision plan must be resubmitted for approval. Number 4, the project must be reviewed and approved through the city's technical review process prior to the submission for final plat to the plat committee. There were 39 letters sent, 6 received, 4 in favor with no comment, and 2 not in favor with no comment.
Questions for the staff? Seeing none, thank you, sir. If the petitioner's here, if you'd just like to give us a brief.
Good afternoon, Angela Smith, Jones Petrie Rufinski, offices at 325 South Lafayette and South Bend. Again, the staff report is right there on this. This is following the previous request. I will make one note. In recent conversations with the neighbors, we discovered there's already a lot 65 in the other phase, and while this is a separate subdivision, when we submit for secondary, we will likely renumber that to lot 78, just to avoid any confusion.
Thank you.
Nothing else has changed from the staff recommendation, and we ask for your approval.
Any questions for Ms. Smith? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll open up the public hearing on this matter. Anyone here in the room like to speak for or against? Anyone on the line who would like to speak for or against this matter? Again, raise your hand and you need to turn your camera on. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Since this is a subdivision, we are taking the final action subject to the city council action. And I would ask that if your motion is in favor of approval, that you include the conditions listed in the staff report. Anyone want to make a motion? Any discussion, questions? No.
You want me to list the actual?
No, I think you can just state the conditions in the staff report.
I make a motion for approval as long as conditions or recommendations by staff report are met and followed.
So I have a motion to approve the subdivision grant preliminary approval with the conditions listed in the staff report. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mishler, seconded by Mr. Jones. Can we have a roll call, please?
Osborne,
Yes.
Newbill,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mishler,
Aye.
Schaefer.
Yes. Motion is approved. Next item on our agenda is 26-TXT-03, Petitioner is the City of Elkhart.
The petition is a text amendment. The petitioner is the City of Elkhart. The request is the City of Elkhart seeks the review and adoption of updated language found in the Unified Development Ordinance. The following terms are being amended or added to Chapter 17, Language, Rules, and Definitions, Backup Generator, Brownfield, Data Center Principal, Data Center Campus, Data Center Accessory, Data Hall Accessory or Electrical Substation Accessory, Mechanical Yard, Sensitive Receptor, Solar Energy System, Solar Community Scale, Solar Large Scale, Solar Accessory. To also update Chapter 4, the use specific conditions, to amend or add the following uses to Table 4.2.1, as well as amended or add the use specific conditions in Sections 4.8 and 4.9 and 4.10. Data Center Principal, Data Center Campus, Data Center Accessory, Solar Community Scale, Solar Large Scale, Solar Small Accessory, update the numbering for headings and subheadings throughout Chapter 4 and 17, as well as cross-reference references throughout the UDO to reflect the changes in Chapters 4 and 17. Analysis. Subsequent to the Plan Commission approval of the Unified Development Ordinance based on changes in state law, there were additional terms that were not mentioned in the definitions of Chapter 17 previously. The goal is to update existing definitions and add new ones related to emerging technologies. The additional terms being added to Chapter 17 language, rules, and definitions are as follows: backup generator, brownfield, data center principal, data center campus, data center accessory, data hall, electrical substation accessory, mechanical yard, sensitive receptor, solar energy system, solar community scale, solar large scale, solar small accessory. The second part of this amendment is to update the use-specific conditions in Chapter 4 and to amend or add the following uses to Table 4.2.1, as well as amend or add the specific conditions in Sections 4.8, 4.9, and 4.10 based on emerging technologies. Those use conditions included data center principal, data center campus, data center, accessory, solar, community scale, solar large scale, solar small accessory. Finally, updating the number for headings and subheadings throughout Chapter 4 and 17 to also update cross-references throughout the UDO to reflect changes to Chapters 4 and 17. Data centers and solar array are emerging technologies that evoke strong feelings and pose tremendous concerns with residents and adjacent neighboring property owners as those uses are introduced and asked to be approved within communities. Environmental, public health, safety, property values, and conformance to development standards are all important considerations to properly review and consider as the development process works throughout the prescribed process review. That is why staff felt it was important to develop, along with our consultant, development regulations that protect the city and its residents should a proposal be made for review. Staff recommends approval of Case 26-TXT-03, the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment for the Unified Development Ordinance as described above, and send to the Common Council with a due pass recommendation.
Questions for the staff?
Other staff coming up.
Other staff are, okay, questions for Mr. Trotter. Then we'll hear from Mr. Huber. Seeing none, Mr. Huber.
Good afternoon, Plan Commission members. Appreciate your time and your consideration of the city's request here. I know this seems like the UDO has been a long time and a long process coming through. Unexpected considerations from our folks at the state with House Bill 1001, I think also gave us a little bit of an opportunity to take advantage of the additional time to ensure that we are truly comprehensive in creating this new Unified Development Ordinance. As many of you are aware, lots of communities, not just in our state, but in the Midwest and across the country, are being presented with decisions on emerging technologies specifically related to data centers, battery storage, all different kinds of things like that. We wanted to make sure that we we take the opportunity to make sure we're addressing those in this ordinance rather than have to come back and do it later. As Eric mentioned, we're adding definitions around many of these emerging technologies, defining solar, battery storage, and data centers at different levels and different scales that may or may not be appropriate at some point, and defining what scales of those would be appropriate for development within the city of Elkhart. With guidance from REA, we really wanted to make sure the language that we incorporate helps keep the process transparent, while at the same time considering the key factors that will help us protect community safety and public safety, but not be a significant, tremendous barrier to local economic development opportunities that we might be presented with in appropriate spaces and appropriate scales. So what you see in the ordinance and the language today represents our current thinking. This is our current best thinking. It doesn't mean that as we continue to get additional information in the future that we wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to update this further moving forward. But I think now Cynthia is going to take a moment and kind of walk through specifically what some of those changes are. So again, that's really what we're trying to accomplish today. And we, again, appreciate your consideration of this request.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cynthia Bowen. I'm a principal at Rundell, Ernstberger and Associates from Indianapolis, Indiana. So what I want to do today is take a few minutes just to give you an overview of those emerging technologies that we did include within the zoning ordinance. And then if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any of those. Okay, there we go. So as Mike indicated, I want to talk just a little bit about what changes were made in Indiana law and why we needed to reflect that in the UDO. And then I'm going to summarize the information for data centers and solar energy systems. So Indiana passed what's called kind of House Bill 1001, which had a lot of different references in it regarding accessory uses, regarding a housing report that needed to be done, and also included some information regarding shooting ranges. So it required us to update the zoning ordinance and what you have. So the first one is now known as Public Law 117. SEA 176 is the Senate's bill. That's where it originated in. So you can still go onto the legislative website and find the original language. But what we needed to do was we needed to incorporate their language because we had indoor shooting ranges listed within the UDO. So they updated the definition, which we have referenced here. So that was updated within the UDO. And then we had to change our use conditions. So if the area is zoned for commercial use, a retail sporting goods store, all of that is permitted on each lot or parcel that is commercial. It also provides that if a property is zoned for commercial, industrial, or agricultural use, an indoor shooting range is permitted on any lot or parcel. So it does, even if we had it recommended as a special exception, we had to change it to permitted. We'd still put in use conditions, but we had to change what we had in there originally. Now, the other one regarding accessory dwelling units turned into Public Law 73. And so what it did was it changed the definition of an accessory dwelling unit to be a self-contained living unit internal to or on the same lot as a parcel as a single-family dwelling. Now, we already had some of this language in there. Initially, we had said that the ADU needed to be 1,000 square feet or less, but we had to go in and add in the lesser of 75% of the interior habitable area square feet or 1,000 square feet. So we had to make a small adjustment there to the accessory dwelling unit. An ADU must include its own cooking, sleeping, and sanitation facilities. And then it also needs to comply with any applicable building codes, safety codes, and other public health codes. And an ADU does not include a manufactured home as defined by state code. And so they had updated the manufactured home definition. So again, we had to incorporate those into the UDO by reference. So now I want to talk a little bit about data centers and what we've updated. So we've talked about here that in certain districts, a data center could either be a special exception use, as you see in the MAN 1 in the PUD, or an accessory use, which you see in several of the other districts. So we define things as an accessory data center or a principal data center. The accessory data center would be accessory to another use that would already be on the site, and it could be subject to administrative approval by the planning staff. Now, what makes this accessory is that it was limited to 2,000 square feet or less and an electrical power capacity of less than 5 megawatts. We also wanted to make sure that accessory data centers were exempt from the primary use conditions as a principal use. So we updated the standards, we've added this in, and then updated the standards likewise. Now, if a data center was a principal use, meaning it was going to be the only thing that was going to be on the property, they are allowed to have an electrical substation, solar capacity, or a battery energy storage system, and those are still subject to the respective conditions. We wanted to focus on brownfield redevelopment, so we want people to pick sites that were already brownfields and that we need to redevelop, and this is a really good use for those types of sites in Elkhart. We needed to make sure that there was what we call 500 feet separation from a sensitivity receptor. So how we define that sensitivity receptor as any residential zoning district, convalescent home, nursing home, hospices, dormitories, community buildings or centers, daycare, libraries, places of worship, schools and colleges, any park, recreation, open space, and trails. So it has to be at least 500 feet from what we call those sensitivity receptors. You are allowed to reduce it to 300 feet if it's separated by an interstate, a highway, or major arterial. We want to make sure in terms of building placement and orientation that it's compatible with the site surroundings. A lot of these data centers actually end up looking like an office building. And sometimes they may have like a front office portion where people are working, then with the back part of the building looking a little bit like a warehouse. But the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that anything that's built still minimizes the visual and environmental impacts. We've put in criteria for site design in the special use conditions. So the special exception is subject to approval of the site and building plan. There has to be a minimum of 5 acres in order for them to undertake a principal data center. The minimum setbacks are 150 square feet from, or 150 feet from the property line. And it still requires screening and buffers. So we've put in some noise and vibration. Data centers are known to making noise depending on their mechanism that they use for cooling the facility. So we marked it at 60 dBA for sensitive receptors and then 70 dBA from others. So at the property line, they cannot be above these two, depending on what they're adjacent to, they cannot be above this decibel letter. We've also put in there that, if it is, they're able to bring that down by using a noise reduction barrier or some other process or some other way of making that happen. But we will also require a sound study to make sure that it is consistent and compatible with what we have in the ordinance. There's a lot of discussion about energy impact. The data centers use a lot of energy. And again, it depends on how they're set up and what they're using. But they have to have a letter that states that they can get adequate capacity from the energy provider. They must have the appropriate utility infrastructure in place before they start to build. We need to understand the cooling system impact because some are cooled with water. Others are cooled with using air conditioners that come in and kind of cool from below. If they're going to have any energy storage, so battery energy storage on site, we need to know what that is and how that is going to be impacted by to the utility or in the surrounding area. And we want to make sure that they're using renewable or clean energy sources. So as I talked about, there's a cooling and water impact. So they must disclose their cooling methodology to us. They must conduct a water impact study so we know what the impacts are going to be on the water utility. And then again, special exceptions subject to commitments or to provide annual reporting on the water impacts every year to the staff. We also required a decommissioning plan when they turned in for their application, and as well as submitting a bond for the decommissioning. There has not been a lot of decommissioning of data centers anywhere, and so this is why we're requiring the bond, and that's a condition of approval, so that way if they decide, in 20 years that they don't need this data center anymore, the community can still, if the property owner does not or data center does not remediate and clean up their site, the city will then have the ability to do that. So let's talk about solar energy systems. So again, much like the data centers, this is either a special exception, depending on the type. So most of the special exception goes to solar community scale, the other one to solar large scale, and I'll talk about the differences between the two. It's an accessory use if it's small scale, and then again, subject to some other principal use being on the site. So again, this could be where you have a homeowner who wants to put solar on their house, or you can have a business who decides that they're going to cover their parking with solar panels. That would be what would be a accessory use. So here we provide a couple of different definitions. We had to put quite a few definitions within the UDO to accommodate this. I'm not going to read them to you. But I really want to talk about the difference between community scale and solar scale. I think everybody understands the small scale. The community scale is where you have a facility that's going to be a minimum of 5 acres, but their capacity has to be below 10 megawatts. They can either use it site contained, so to power things that are happening on the site, or they can still sell back to the power grid. So they can do either ones in the community scale. In the large scale, a minimum project size is of 10 acres. Again, it's the principal land use. And they are strictly doing wholesale. So they are then providing that electrical energy for third parties. Not that they're going to use it on site, but they're transforming it back out into the utility system. So, just the summary here, minimum 5 acres, maximum 10 acres on the community side, capacity of less than 10 megawatts. And then on the large scale, minimum of 10 acres, and it can go up from there, and there is no capacity limit whatsoever. So when we get into the use standards for this, these standards apply both to the community scale and the large scale solar. It is permitted as a special exception. Again, we want to look at targeting brownfield sites if we can as the predominant redevelopment feature. It still has to comply with Indiana Code 8142. And then we've put differing setbacks and heights on here. So the setbacks and the heights are measured from the edge, including a fence or a berm. We have differing distances depending on what type of road that you're located next to. We have setbacks from what we call non-participating dwellings. So those particular properties may be a property owner that's adjacent to it that doesn't have solar facilities. That's what a non-participating dwelling means. Or if they get agreement or approval from that property owner, they can reduce that 250 setback to 50 feet. But there has to be a signed agreement that the non-participating dwelling owner will agree with that. The panels can only be 20 feet tall, and that's at maximum tilt. And then any other structure they have on the site has to be per the zoning district limit. So we have that they need to have vegetation and landscape buffers around the solar facility, that there is a 6-foot minimum height, but in order to have that, you must make sure you maintain wildlife access and be wildlife friendly so that you maintain those wildlife corridors. You cannot have any barbed wire around that solar facility. All of the cabling needs to be buried underground. You must provide a utility plan and show all of those cables. So we're requiring more detail than what you would have for other uses. The Department of Public Works, so Jeff, aka Jeff, are going to have to provide approval of this as well as a part of the special exception. There is also nuisance mitigation with these solar facilities. So they have to design it so that they limit glare, so that at the tilt, the way the panels are tilted, it's not shining into some other business or into someone's bedroom or whatnot. We want to make sure that it doesn't interfere with traffic or air traffic control. We also have a sound requirement here that it cannot exceed 50 dBA at the exterior of a non-participating dwelling. They need to do a glare analysis so we can make sure that we're not having issues with glare on any other property. They need to do a sound model analysis because, again, there is sound associated, a hum that comes with these solar facilities. And there may be an additional consultant analysis may be required depending on the facility, the scale, where it's located, things like that. Each of these, both community scale and large scale, have to have a decommissioning plan. So we said decommissioning, abandonment, and what we call a force majeure event. And they have to come back and do site restoration. So that means they have to take everything out, including the cabling, down to a specific level to put the site back to where it was. And again, kind of like the data centers, there is a bond that for that decommissioning that will need to be required. You are permitted to have a battery energy storage system alongside a solar, but that battery energy storage system must meet the use conditions that we've already set forth for those types of facilities. So just to quickly talk about small scale accessory, again, when solar energy systems are attached to a primary or accessory structure, it's not counted towards the lot coverage. Solar carports and associated EV charging stations are permitted for parking lot districts. We do have height limits for each of those, depending on the district that it's adjacent to or in. We again want to make sure that the reflectors are minimizing the glare, and that will be confirmed upon inspection. and that grid-tied solar shall comply with the interconnection requirements of the off-grid systems, and off-grid systems are exempt from this requirement. So that means if you're only powering your building or your house, then you are not subject to the grid-tiered solar use or conditions. Now we then go into building or roof-mounted solar. So we distinguish that just a little bit. Shall not exceed the maximum height for the zoning districts. And if you're going to, if it's on a flat roof, then these panels need to be screened with a parapet wall in accordance with section 810.3 within the UDO. If they're on a pitched roof, they're still subject to all applicable approvals. So building permits, building plans to make sure that that roof is sturdy enough to hold that solar panel. And if these solar panels are visible from the street, then it can't be more than 10 inches above the roof line, or then they're going to have to do some screening from the street on the roof. For ground-mounted solar, it has to be in a side or a rear yard. It must meet the setbacks of the zoning district at its maximum tilt. Planning staff may approve panels exceeding the lot coverage, where the cover underneath those remains as vegetative and not compacted. So if there's still grass growing or there's special landscaping put in, the staff can make that approval. There is a 15-foot max height at max tilt when it's accessory to a residential use. So with that kind of completes these updated items that we've made to the UDO. So your next steps here are to recommend the UDO for approval, or as you would say, do pass to the Common Council. There will be a public hearing with the council to get additional feedback and information from the public. And as soon as they complete that and approve it, then it's adoption. And you're able to implement everything that we have in the UDO. I will stop there and see if you have any questions.
Mr. Newbill.
One of the questions I have is regarding livestock. And you said something about that noise that comes from the data centers. What kind of feedback do we have from places that already have that? Is it that sound a big humming noise that's continuous, or?
It is. It's been described to me. I mean, I have not heard it personally myself, but it's been described to me as it sounds like kind of constant traffic within the background, and that never really goes away. So
how far does that cover, that noise? Is it, you said it's 5 acres, 10 acres. I mean, is it covering a mile, or how?
So what we've done is we've put a decibel standard in there. And again, 60 decibels or 70 decibels. And so it has to be that. It can't be any higher than that at the property line. And if it is, then they're going to have to mitigate that. And again, that's one way, they can use sound walls. There's other things that they can do. They can enclose the air conditioners within a building. There are things that they can do to mitigate that sound. And that's what we're trying to, bring the noise level down so it doesn't sound like, cars constantly going past.
Interesting. So they don't know what kind of effect that might have on livestock or other animals in the area?
There has not been a study, as far as I know, that's been done at this point in time and how that might affect livestock.
Mr. Mishler.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. First, when it goes to the ADUs, I know previously there's been some contention on whether mobile homes were permitted under House Bill 1001 for ADUs. This clarifies that they are no longer allowed, correct? So we won't run into that situation that we previously did.
Correct.
Okay, good. That's good to see. The other questions I had were regarding the data center, specifically where it says any system designed for cooling and operation of the facility will be adequate and will not negatively impact the surrounding region. That's good, but what is defined by negatively like impacting the surrounding region there? And what's the quantifying measures of what would be considered negatively impacting?
So what we've asked them to do, of course, the sound, understand if they're going to use water, what the water impacts are. I'm trying to think what else. I may have to go back here, a couple slides. Yes.
They have to undertake a number of studies to prove that they're not.
That is correct. So we've tried to allocate where we can for each of these sections, where they needed to undertake the different studies, as Mike said, whether it's a glare analysis, whether it's a sound analysis, whether it's a water impact study. So they have to provide all of those things so that you all can make an informed decision and know what the impact is going to be on the electric grid, on how much power will be used, on how much water is going to be consumed, and whether the city can handle that, those types of things.
Okay. Do I have anything else real quick? Is there anything that would require them to have a closed loop cooling system for the data center in this? Because I know that's been a major issue when it comes to noise, is the ones that don't use a water cooled system are traditionally have to use air cooling, which is where you get that loud buzzing sound from. However, when you run into water cooling, you're potentially, if you're talking about a hyperscale center, looking at 1 million to 1.1 million gallons of wastewater potentially a day. But if they use a closed loop, it's like 25 to 30,000 gallons. And I think didn't you say, Jeff, we use about 12 million gallons of wastewater a day, give or take?
Yeah, our current wastewater dry weather is about 12.5 million gallons a day, and we have 20 million gallons of capacity. So I got capacity for sale.
You got capacity for sale. Well, that's good. But when it comes to actual usage, those closed systems use significantly less in the tens of thousands. Is there any requirements in this language that they use those less water intensive systems, or is that something that is left up to the council to decide after those studies are done?
Yes, so we did not come in and require that they use a particular system, because it really depends on the data center outfit and what their experience is with their other data centers. I mean, I've dealt with a few data centers, and so, one of the ones that I dealt with did not have a closed loop system. And so then that kind of negated the project going there, because there wasn't the capacity to be able to treat and to get that much capacity and then to treat it and send it back to the plant. A lot of times when data centers come in, there is an economic incentive, or if you will, kind of conversations about what they need to do. And even in this process, the staff can have those conversations with them of, I think you need to go with this system, or we would prefer you do this. As part of, like, if they were to seek economic incentives, you could then also tie those recommendations to those economic incentives as well. So you kind of had two places where you have the ability to negotiate what you want based on the outcome of the studies.
Got it. Thank you.
What kind of staffing are required for these facilities? How many people work at them? I know it's going to depend on the size, I'm sure.
Well, it depends on the size, and then it depends on the data center itself. A lot of times, if you have a third-party data center, and so one of the ones that I've looked at, they were going to have 5 buildings, and they were a third party. So it wasn't something like Meta or Google coming in and establishing their own data center. It was a third party who would then would be able to sell kind of that system to a variety of different users. And so that type of facility used or had about 100 employees per day. Of course, Google and Meta, they're a little bit different, and I'm not as familiar with them and knowing, how many employees that they have at their facilities.
What's the attraction to the brownfield sites for development of these locations?
So both data and solar take up a lot of space and need a lot of acreage for buffering, for landscaping, and then for expansion. But one of the things that we wanted to look at is we have several brownfields here in Elkhart. And so what we wanted to do is some of that already has the infrastructure in place needed to support those types of uses. And so we wanted to provide an incentive or some direction that they focus on the brownfield sites first, instead of going out to the edge of the community and you having to run additional water and sewer or electric capacity to these sites that then would be annexed into the city.
So you wouldn't have to remediate the entire site then to
Correct.
certain levels, only the part where there's going to be people working?
Right.
Is that it?
Well, you may not have to do any remediation at all because it's considered an industrial use. And the former brownfield site was an industrial use. There may be some remediation, but it would be very limited because the use is very similar.
Are these sites in the city or outside the city?
In the city.
Yeah, so I don't really have a question, but I think just a summarizing statement. To me, the approach that Cynthia and Mr. Huber, Mr. Trotter, the staff have put together for us to consider, what I appreciate is it sets up parameters. It kind of sets up the rules of the game should a developer approach us. And it still leaves the council with a lot of discretion. It still leaves this board with a lot of discretion. It still leaves the BZA with a lot of discretion. But instead of us being surprised when a developer comes in, we've kind of set the rules of the game for then how we could interact with that developer and how the administration can. So that's what I appreciate about this, that we're putting that in writing, that these are the rules that we'll live under if someone were to approach us, and then we can make a decision based on that. So I do appreciate the time that the staff and Cynthia have put in on this. Any other questions?
I just have one, kind of following up with what you stated, Jeff. First, thanks for coming up with this, as being proactive on it. I'm wondering what, if any, collaboration we have had with the cities or towns surrounding us and the county particularly, who will likely be approached first. It seems that that's the way it works. And so collaboration is one point, and the second point being, how are we somewhat the same or different from what it is that they are requiring?
I don't know that I can completely answer your question. One of the things that we did to help staff was we put together kind of a white paper on solar fields, data centers, things like that, and looked at research from not only in the region but around the country, and pulled together what we believe to be the best practices for the city itself. Each county within this region has differing standards and differing requirements. And so we felt it was important to make sure that Elkhart had the best practices in place of the current thinking, at the most cutting edge thinking that we have right now on these particular facilities. And again, as Jeff said, because them coming in, you want to have some discretion, but you want to definitely have some guidelines that they need to meet. And I think, Mike, you may have.
Well, and this, because you may be able to add to this question as well, Mike, because this is such a moving target right now, and it's such an important thing to so many people, concerns more than welcoming, as we know. How often, because you said right now at this moment, this is what we know, how often will this be reviewed and updated? Because I think that is the critical part of all of this. It's a great place to start, but do we know we're even on the right road at this point?
Yeah, and I think that was what I tried to say in my opening statements, is this represents our thinking now. And I mean, to your point, we didn't necessarily go out and have a lot of conversations regionally with the other communities in the region on this. Again, we leaned into the process that we already had with our consulting team at REA to say, look, as we're finishing this up, these things are starting to come out and become, and we don't want to take the, let's put a hold on everything moratorium approach. Let's look beyond the region, but let's look at what's happening nationally, and let's try to understand what are those most important factors that allow us to balance transparency, to balance protecting public safety, protecting against the concerns that we know the public have against these things, but also allowing somewhat of a framework for a path forward, so we don't just take a no economic development approach to that and let opportunities that might be appropriate and at a scale that fits our community, in a location that fits our community, to have a path forward in a transparent way, with plenty of opportunity for the public to have input into that process. And so that's kind of how we came up here. I think your point is great. I think understanding that our regional community partners are going through a lot of this, I think we can start engaging and having some of that. And I think Chris Steger had a panel last week to kind of help facilitate some of that. So I think a lot of us are starting to have those conversations regionally and how we might do that. Hopefully what we've put together can also help inform other communities in our community, in our county and in our region as far as moving forward, and or tell us, hey, these are some things that maybe we didn't get right and we do need to rethink and make adjustments. We fully don't intend this to be the last word on this. We want to learn and continue to educate ourselves. In fact, I'm looking at a proposal from InFocus right now to kind of help us even understand and be able to make fact-based decisions. What are those facts that we're basing those decisions on?
This does need to be a living document.
And this is our starting point,
in this
right?
area.
We just didn't want to not have a starting point,
Right.
and we wanted to have a starting point. And this is kind of, we started with defining it and setting, as Jeff said, the kind of the ground rules for how we move it forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? My microphone back on. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I think we do have to open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the room or online who would like to speak on this matter?
And good afternoon, Angela Smith with Jones Petrie Raffinsky, offices at 325 South Lafayette. I wasn't intending to speak on this. I just happened to be here for the other item. I have worked extensively with an end user development in St. Joseph County, and it is Jones Petrie Raffinsky that is working on the DPUD for the town of Bristol. And so I am very familiar with ordinances related to both. So I just wanted to answer a couple questions and address a couple things. In relation to the noise level in livestock, 60 dBA is about the equivalent of a residential air conditioning unit. So while they're louder at the source, when they get to the property owner, it's about the same as a residential air conditioning unit. So when people ask me that question, I usually, like, how are you what's this going to be like if this runs 24/7? And I kind of laugh and I say, well, I don't know, ask the people in Arizona, because I'm pretty sure their air conditioners run 24/7 and they still have livestock. So that noise level is very appropriate. Again, it's also what we're including in the Bristol DPUD for what we're proposing adjacent to residential, but not as loud as most people think. It's the same as a general conversation is 60 dBA. So that answers that. And then in terms of comparison to what's being proposed in the county, this is very comparable to what we're proposing for the Bristol DPUD, even though that's not for a data center specifically. That is one of the allowable uses within that DPUD. The noise is consistent with what we're doing. The setbacks are consistent with what we're proposing. We're probably proposing some stricter screening requirements, but that comes from working directly with the adjacent neighbors and something that the city council or this board or the BZA could also impose. So it's pretty consistent with what we've seen, and it's a great job by the staff and consultants to take this step to put that in there instead of reacting to concerns that are often based on outdated data centers and other uses that are no longer using the most current technology. And I can tell you, anything that would come forward now is not going to have the same technology 2 years from now. So, you know, we were asked in Bristol to require a closed loop system. The challenge with that is this technology could improve and we don't want to necessarily restrict them. So we've allowed for some flexibility as the staff has here too, I think. So that's greatly appreciated. So thank you, staff, for taking this on, and hopefully it resolves your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And I can speak a little bit on the water side. Mike Yoder, the town manager in Bristol, he and I have talked regional water and wastewater a little bit, and I think they're taking a very eyes wide open approach, similar to what you were questioning, Mr. Mishler, with different options based on what comes in, should it come in. Any other public comment, either online or in the room? See none, I will close the public hearing. We do have kind of a request for a very specific motion on this. But before that, I'll ask if there's any other questions or discussion from the Plan Commission members. If not, Mr. Mishler is going to make a motion.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. I move to approve the Unified Development Ordinance and send to the Common Council with a do pass recommendation, which is exactly what I would have said anyway, Jeff.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Seconded by Mr. Murray. Can we do a roll call, please?
Lawson,
Yes.
Newbill,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mishler, Schaefer.
Yes. Thank you again for your time putting this together. Last item on our agenda is addressing 26-SI-06.
The address being proposed, there's only one for this month, is 217 Hayes Drive, which is for a new single-family dwelling.
Do I have a motion to approve the addressing as presented?
Motion to approve the addressing as presented.
Motion by Mr. Mishler, seconded by Mr. Newbill. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Motion to adjourn. Any second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time today.